Welcome to This is Concrete, a podcast where we speak with the people whose work revolves around concrete and coatings. Let's get to what you came for.
Hello, it's Chad Gill here, and I'm the host of the This is Concrete podcast. This episode today is brought to you by Concreate. Concreate is an experienced custom concrete polishing and coating company that specializes in transforming plain concrete surfaces into clean, distinctive, and enduring masterpieces. We've been serving both industrial and residential markets for over a decade and helping designers, architects, and tradesmen bring their designs to life. We are also sponsored by Lamin & Coaching. So if you're looking for an expert guidance on remote staffing for your business, look no further than Lamin & Coaching, our trusted sponsor. With our help, you can streamline hiring, onboarding, training of assistants for roles like EAs, estimating, and project admins, all within the construction industry. We can even assist with set up a CRM to keep track of your sales or project management tools to ensure timely project completion. Don't settle for a one-size-fits-all solution. We customize everything to the unique needs of our clients. Contact us today to learn more at laminandcoach.com. Okay, so I want to introduce today's guest. I have the pleasure of interviewing Shawn Davis. He's the CEO and founder of Davis & Co. Custom Builders. Since the business's conception in 2019, Shawn has more than doubled their revenue year over year. As Zach Berkshire Homes recently rated them as one of the top 50 construction companies in Tennessee. This success is due to their unwavering commitment to prioritize customer satisfaction and provide a white glove service in the construction industry. Shawn, thanks for coming on today. Anxious to hear about this white glove service.
I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here. It'll be good to talk for sure.
So can you tell me a little bit about Davis & Co. Builders, like what you guys special in, your kind of like your main features and that kind of thing?
So I can't really say that we have any really major focal points. We're kind of a kind of a glove that kind of fits all, you know. We do get a lot of carpentry services. We do a lot of concrete work, and we also do a lot of like kitchen and bathrooms. But that's not to say that we don't do everything in between. So we do a lot of auxiliary buildings. We've done some custom homes. We've done, we work with a lot of, I guess you would say real estate investors. So coming in, flipping homes and things like that, where we'll go in and fully gut the home and then rebuild it. There's really no major focal point. I mean, we've got probably about 14, we average between about 14 to 18 crews, and they all do different things. So we've got guys that do gutters, we've got guys that do roofing, we've got guys that do framing, bricking, I mean, tile, you pretty much name it. We've got plumbing, electrical. I mean, we've got just about everything. So there's really nothing that we'll turn down unless it's either just something that's just too crazy that we don't want to get involved in, or it just doesn't make sense financially for us. You know, it may be too small for us, overhead and everything. So there's really can't say a big focal point. It's something we've considered in the past, but we still get so many calls for so many different things. I mean, one day we might get somebody that calls to have a kitchen and done, and next day we might have somebody call us that just wants us to come pour a foundation for a garage. I mean, it's just, it's different every day. And I think that's one thing that I absolutely love about this business too.
So 14 to 18 crews at any given time, how do you coordinate all the different schedules, events, jobs, and stuff like that? How do you keep those from bumping into one another?
So we kind of do things a little bit differently than I think the standard construction company does. So we have several project managers who work with us. And I know generally speaking, in construction, you think project manager, they're specifically focused on a job. We kind of allow our project managers to expand outside of that, where they're able to do quoting as well, but they're also helping with managing and running kind of multiple crews. So not only am I involved because I still enjoy it, and this is kind of why I started it. I love the business, I love the industry, and it's just a very eclectic, different industry, and I kind of grew up in it as well. So it's kind of one of those situations that I still want to stay hands-on and be very involved. So I get in there and work hand in hand with the project managers and we kind of schedule based on the jobs that need to be done and based on the weather and prioritizing and how we've scheduled it with the customers and, those types of things. Obviously, materials are a big piece of that. So we've got to make sure they're available and they're in. Nowadays, that's something that everybody deals with. But we've kind of figured out a pretty good system with that. And, between myself and we average between about 2 or 3 project managers pretty consistently. So between the 3 or 4 of us, we manage everything pretty well. It's not been difficult. We do utilize a CRM system that allows us to put whether it's our project managers, our crews, or subcontractors in there, and then it allows us to create timelines, whether it be by individual job or it be by their schedule based on what projects they're working on and where. And then they're able to pull that up on their phones or tablets and see, okay, here's where I'm going today and here's what I'm doing. And it pretty much provides a task list on a daily basis of what they're doing. So we've really, really dove into technology. I think that's a big thing that's really made a big difference for us. That was a big change last year too. We really got tired of doing things the long way. And so we just got so busy that doing it the long way just didn't make sense anymore. And so adding those technologies in where we're being able to go in and utilize our admins, and we talked about this a little bit, to enter that information in of crew 1 is going here for 4 or 5 hours this morning, and then they're going to come here to finish the day out. These are the tasks that need to be completed at each location. And a lot of time the project manager will meet them there when they first get there to get going, and kind of walk them through, hey, here's the task. Obviously you see it in the system, but here specifically is what we need done. Here's what the materials are. Here's what we're doing. And then, on to the next one. And it's worked fairly well for us. And it's created a much more streamlined experience, not only for us and our employees, but also for the client as well.
Yeah. And you said, you really focus on the idea of customer satisfaction, prioritizing that and white gloves. So what do you do? Does that mean you can't, the customer's always right thing. You're like, well, I get it, but that's not all. They're not always right. If they were always right, they wouldn't need your expertise and stuff like that. So how do you manage, or maybe you don't run into it, but where a customer is like, hey, they just got the wrong interpretation of what's going on, or you get a challenge, like what kind of technique do you use or you found to be the most useful, and just to come out of it with a good customer satisfaction?
Yeah, so those are kind of 2 different questions, right? So what do we do different as far as the white glove service and then the customer satisfaction side? So there are 2 very different things. So it's kind of like you said, the customers are always right. Well, obviously we both know they're definitely not. I have yet to meet a customer that was right, to be honest with you. And to any of mine that are listening, I'm sorry, but it's true. And like you said, why are we there if they know it's right? So we're actually dealing with a customer right now. So this is a perfect example, not mentioning names or projects, but this has been a what should have been probably, a 7 to 10 day project. Weather has played a part in this, obviously, and there's been some other stuff, but it has felt like every step of the way that this customer knows everything, which, we all know what that means. So having to deal with them, and from a customer satisfaction point of really being able to tell a customer, no, you're wrong, and doing it, this is how it needs to be done, or however that argument goes. Everybody's a little different on how they handle that. But essentially the way that we do it is, there's 2 ways that this goes. We tell them, no, that cannot be done, and here is why that can't be done. Whether it be safety, it be codes, it be you think it's going to look right, but it's not. And it's, we go through a hand-holding process, I guess you would say, in those situations for the customer's always right situation, or the customer satisfaction, of trying to help explain to them whether the things that they want is really what they're looking for. And I know that sounds odd to say because, they're calling you because they want to make their vision come true, but it's not. I think what it boils down to with the customer satisfaction side is that they did call you because of your expertise, right? And so they have a vision that they're wanting to bring to life, and they need somebody to do it, but they need somebody who's also going to be honest with them. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that has helped us a lot along the way. I feel like there are a lot of companies out there, and I've run into these companies who are just the, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, do whatever you want just because they want to get paid and get out. But in the end, somebody else is having to go behind them to fix those mistakes or fix those problems that they didn't have the nerve or the balls or whatever you want to call it to tell the customer this is not going to work and this is going to be horrible in the long run. For us, I want to make sure that, one, we're providing quality. I want to make sure that structurally, safety, codes, everything's where it's supposed to be, but also in the longevity of the project. I want to make sure that, we always warranty our work no matter what it is. So we warranty the craftsmanship, we warranty the materials, we do all that. And so going through that process, I want to make sure that what we're building, even if it's just tile, if it's concrete, if it's drywall, it doesn't really matter what it is. If somebody wants built-ins and it's just not going to work the design that they have, and we've got to come up with something different, I want to make sure that at the end of the day, whatever that project is, whether the customer's right or wrong, that when we're done, the customer is happy with the design, they're happy with the finished product, and the quality is going to be there. And it's going to be something that's going to last not just for their generation, but for their kids and the next. And we're not getting called back to do warranty work or somebody else having to come in to fix what we just decided to go, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, we'll just do it and bow and get paid and leave. With this customer that I was speaking of a little bit ago, we've had to go through that process a lot with them, where both of them are actually from different countries. And the way that they do things where they're from and the way that we do things here are obviously very different. And so trying to explain that to them of like, sure, we can do it because this is not something that's necessarily going to really matter in the end, but for longevity, you don't want that. And here's why you don't want that. And you've got to take the time to really, like I said, you've got to do some hand holding there. You've got to explain to them why they don't want to do that specific piece that they're wrong about, or why it's good that what they do want to do is right. You've got to go both directions with it. But in the end, when the project is finished, if you do that hand holding, you take that extra time to walk them through that process rather than just being like, yes, I'll do it. 3 months later, they're calling you because it's crumbling or whatever the issue is. You take that time to explain to them why, no, we're not going to do that. And if that's what you want us to do, you're going to have to call somebody else. Otherwise, we have another alternative. This is why you want to go this route. This is why you want to do this. And a lot of the time when we do that, we're making sure to keep all of that in mind during the quoting process. Even we want to make sure that, we're hearing what they're saying and we're understanding their vision, but we're also understanding that vision's not possible. And so we're going to do it. This is how we need to make sure we quote this, to make sure that when we do quote it, we're looking at it from a sound, solid, to code type of situation, so that when we do go back to them and we're going through that process of that building and or design or whatever you want, wherever you're having that conversation at in that process, that the money's there. We're not having to put a change order in to ask for more. And it has, I think, has been a big piece of what has made us successful, is that part. Now, on the white glove service side, it kind of goes back to the same concept of the hand holding, but this is more of through the very beginning process and then also through the building process into the finished process. So some of that has to do with a lot of transparency. So we kind of talked about this a little bit off here, but one of the things that we have massively done, or that has made a big difference for us, is created a system that has allowed not only for our staff to be able to see kind of a schedule and be able to upload their own note, but be able to follow tasks and notes and addresses and times and days, essentially a schedule. But on the flip side, the client also has access to that. And so our guys post photos every day. They post updates every day. There's consistently a kind of a, it's almost like, you check shipping when you're looking for the tracking number for shipping, right? You want to know where your package is. So it's kind of the same concept with our systems or our kind of process with the customers. There's almost like a tracking number kind of. They're able to go in and actually track their progress on their project, whether they're out of town or they're home. Because some people don't have a clue what you're doing. They may be there and say they're having you build an enclosed patio. We'll just say that you're building it from scratch and you've got to build the deck and the framing and the roofing and you've got to do all that stuff. And they may have no idea where you're at in that process. And a lot of the time, especially in construction, I think we all know that, a majority of our workers, probably 50% of them don't speak English. So sometimes the homeowner is not really getting answers. Unless they want anyways.
Right.
And so it makes it a lot easier when they're able to go in and they're able to put a note themselves or ask a question or be able to look at photos or look at tasks that have been completed and look at updates. And the nice thing is when they are able to ask a question, not only do I get it as the owner, but then also my admin gets it, the project manager associated with that site gets it, and then the team lead also gets it. And so it's live. So no matter where we're at, whether on the site or we're somewhere else, and that question comes in, any of us are able to respond to it. And typically, the way we have it set is it needs to be responded to within 10 minutes by somebody. And so that's a big piece of it, is that we've made sure the communication is massive. I mean, that's huge in this industry. When I first decided to start this business, obviously I had experience. I didn't just jump into this at a whim and I'm like, I'm buying a hammer and a saw, let's go.
So he's going. How hard can it be? It's very.
Anybody out there thinking about it, don't do it. Work with somebody first. But I had experience and stuff, but one of the biggest things that a buddy of mine told me, he had a fairly big construction company himself at the time. And he said, look, there's two things that will make you successful in this industry. And he says, answer your phone and show up on time. That's it. It's all you have to do. Answer your phone and show up on time and you will be successful. And it's very, very true. But I didn't feel like that was enough. I come from a background of being a VP in a finance firm and, all kinds of stuff like that. And so customer support and account management and essentially really working with people was high for me. And so just answering the phone and showing up just wasn't enough. So I had to figure out a way to really expand on that level of communication with the customers, where it may not be a text message or a call, but it may be something that's digital. I mean, we're going into we are in a digital age and technology runs a lot. And so, if you're not utilizing the technologies that are out there, whether it be to help with communication or it be with tracking or whatever it ends up being on your projects, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice and the customer, honestly. And there's nobody in our area that's doing this. And I think that's part of what is massively expanded, not only our business, but that has really just continued to grow us. We don't do any advertising. We don't do any marketing. Everything is word of mouth and relationship. And we stay consistently busy. And it's not just, hey, we're doing the same thing this year as last year. We're projected to triple our numbers this year from last year. And a lot of people are down this year. And so there's a big difference. And it has to do with a lot of what we're doing for our customers and how we're doing it. And it's, we're always looking for new ways to continue to work on that customer experience and customer relationship, but we're also trying to always figure out ways that we can do things better from a job perspective. So I hope that kind of answers your questions there. I know it's a little long-winded on that, but there's a lot of moving pieces to it,
It is. No, it does. I mean, I think you can sum it up mostly with just, it's about communication. I mean, I think the thing that bothers people the most is when they can't, because that frustration grows if you're like, man, I wonder what they're working on today. And then I call them and they don't answer. Well, then however long it takes you to get back to them, that problem in their mind is just multiplying exponentially.
Yep.
And I love the both the continuous, where with your technology, that you can get that continuous feedback of what's going on and where am I, so they can check at any time. Plus, it's asynchronous, meaning you can answer them without having to make a phone call, because phone call is a minimum 10-minute engagement. A text message or a message back onto your portal, that's 30 seconds. Hey, yes, we're there. We just did footings. No, that's not complete. Yeah, you can walk on it tomorrow. Those kind of questions that are short, And both parties want that. They want their answer with the least amount of friction they can get. So I think you're very smart for doing that. I think it's, I think that's a, like you said, it's a differentiator. And you don't normally see technology. And, the guys that are really good at utilizing technology are not always the same guys that have the hammer and the saw, and often are not. But when you compare them together like that, I think that makes for a really rich environment for growth, which is, obviously what you're seeing, man. Good job.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a process. Don't get me wrong. It's not something I think that I definitely don't want people thinking we jumped into it overnight and it was a success.
Yeah, no.
It was a training process. There was a lot that we had to go through with it. But it finally, in the last probably 5 to 6 months, really started to click, and it's worked well. And, like you said, you actually made a good point where so when you said, oh yeah, you can walk on it in 24 hours, we've had to say that a lot in the last week, it seems like. But, and it's nice because with some of these projects, we're able to preemptively go in and essentially put in Q&As where we're able to go in and say, hey, these are the most common questions we know we get on these projects. So we're preemptively able to go in and in the notes section or in the kind of, I guess, project update section, be able to put all those bullet points in for customers preemptively the day of. So that way, when they do go in at the end of the day or even throughout the day, say they're at work and they're working and they're trying to figure out what's going on, they're able to kind of see those notes and see those status updates without having to ask the questions. And so we try to stay very proactive too. Obviously it doesn't always work. Customers still have questions. Maybe they didn't want something built a certain way or, whatever it is. But, as long as you stay on top of it and as long as you're proactive and you're essentially just doing your best when it comes to that communication with the customer and being very, very transparent, I think is another thing. We've noticed and seen so many people who have just screwed up on a job or made a mistake, and then just want to get out of it so quickly. And then, this goes back to the structural and that type of thing. Obviously it's a different side of it, but being very, very transparent, we're human, right? All of us, no matter how good we are at our job, we're still human. And so we make mistakes. The biggest thing is that you've got to be able to admit to the customer, hey, we screwed up on how we framed this, or hey, we screwed up on how we laid this concrete. Hey, we screwed up on this tile. Whatever it ends up being, eat the cost or whatever you have to do. Materials aren't that expensive, realistically, in the grand scheme of things. And if you're doing it right, your markup and overhead on your materials should cover any additional you need. So if you do screw up. So it's admitting to those mistakes too is a big piece. I mean, that's a massive, massive piece. I think we have earned more business from customers because of being able to admit where we screwed up and then fixing it and making it right, than we've even earned from any of the white glove stuff that we do.
I think you learn more. Yeah, you learn more about somebody's character when something like that comes up.
Yeah.
So we interview lots of, I've interviewed, lots of companies and there's always like somewhere in the interview, something's going to pop out where you're like, oh my gosh, man, that is such a good idea. And so probably to sum up, kind of to summarize our interview here, I think the one that you kind of went through and almost glazed over, but I would just really want everybody to really focus that idea of preemptive, frequently asked questions. Like when you say, hey, we're about to pour a slab, we're about to do tile, we're about to frame. Here are the most common questions we get. I can't imagine that there is anybody that's sending out that preemptive message with those questions and what that must do for both you, because now they're going to answer their own questions without having to bother you. But an informed customer is a calm customer. And I think that's, that's a huge takeaway, man. That is just absolutely spectacular. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to restate that one and send out on that portal to encourage their engagement. I think that's huge. And I think you're right. I think when you screw up, it's the biggest non-secret secret. Everybody's like, I don't want to tell them. Like, do they already know? Are you going to admit it or not? And what are you going to do with it? And you trust somebody that says, hey, it didn't go the way we planned it. And I have a way to fix it. And we're on top of it. That's a whole lot better than the no, nothing went wrong. Don't worry about it. Stay in the dark. I'm fixing it, and I don't want you to know. God described it to me that way. He's like, biggest non-secret secret.
Everybody does know. And it's the funny thing is even if they don't know literally how to do what you're doing, they somehow know when you screw up. And I don't know if it's just from behavior. I don't know.
Body language, facial expression, the wordage of when all of a sudden it seems like a lawyer is typing your text. Yes, everybody knows.
Yeah, 100%. No, and that's some of the other stuff you're talking about, the client engagement and preemptive stuff too. Some of the other things that we do as well, and this, if this helps somebody, even if it's one person, hey, great. We always add in the portals, especially going through design processes. We'll use tile as an example. There's always ways to do it on a budget. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this I'm going to use this as an example. Would never recommend this in a bathroom, but if you're looking at backsplashes, things like that, even flooring, if it's not, as long as it's not in a bathroom, I don't know that I would do this in a bathroom. If you're talking about a foyer or, something similar, then it makes sense. But just an example, we always try to put things in there in going through this process. And this goes back to the client communication, but it also the kind of the white glove service where we're being able to offer through this system too that we're utilizing, of being able to offer kind of upgrades, and we're being able to put them in there where there's different ways to build something. And it may be something that's necessarily, here's kind of a budgetary way to do it, but it's not going to affect it. And here's more of a way to do it that's, it's going to cost a little bit more, but here's how that's done. And so perfect example is on tile. There are backsplashes. I don't think this is a secret to anybody. Some people are going to want it done with mortar versus construction adhesive, right? But you can always put it in there as an option. Mortar, the labor and the cost is higher. Construction adhesive, labor is a little lower, cost is lower. So by putting those in there, you're not changing your margins as far as your profits. You're just changing your margins as far as your materials and stuff like that and time. So rather than spending, $50, $100 on mortar and then spending an extra 2-3 hours or however big the area is, we'll say, all you're doing is lowering those material costs and the time that is spent on it. But as far as your markup and as far as your actual, I guess your profits, they stay the same. So that's something else that has been really good for us from a financial aspect as well. Because then it has allowed the customers to be able to say, a great example, sometimes on a pergola, somebody may want vinyl or metal versus cedar or pine. And so, you price those out in different options and you provide those examples. And it's amazing to me how often I have customers who come to me and say, I want a pergola built in cedar and I want, the extractable awning or contractable awning, like all these things. And you go in and provide 2 other additional options for them within that portal for them to look at. And I will tell you 8 times out of 10, they go with another option before the cedar. And so it's just providing those additional options for the customers as well. It's a layered, it's a layered thing, right? So it's not one thing that actually makes the recipe work. It's you've got to do all of them together. And if you can do them and you do them all together, then you'll be successful and it'll work. It's just consistently layering and just being transparent. I mean, that's really what's made us so successful.
Make a few improvements every quarter. Yeah, by the end of the year, you've gotten a lot done. Yeah, we call it the Kaizen approach. Same thing. People are like, I didn't really get that much accomplished this month. Well, think about a dripping sink. That thing drips, doesn't look like a lot of water, one drip at a time. You let it run all weekend. That's a lot of water.
But it's kind of like the whole thing when you put an apple, it's like you were saying with the drip, put an apple under it. It may not look like it's doing anything, but come back in a couple of days, there'll be a hole in it. You're chipping away slowly at something. But last year for a lot of what we've done that has started working this year, we were already kind of doing it, just doing it in different ways. And we spent last year really I guess you would say, perfecting the recipe and adding those layers and getting the technology in place and getting the systems in place and doing the things that we had to do. And it legit took about a year, to do it. And then, once they were in place and once they were, up and running and everybody was trained and everything was going the way it was supposed to go, it's been so smooth. We haven't had any complaints. We haven't had any hiccups. We've had nothing but extremely, very, very happy customers, which has been awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what we convey to our coaching clients. It's like, hey, it's going to take a year, but month 1 is, month 2 is better than month 1. Month 3 is better than month 2. So you're making progress the whole time.
And your spin rate may go up too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everything feeds in on itself from there. Man, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it. And I am 100% going to try and steal your idea about the preemptive FAQs, man. That is and so we talked to a guy with, Rich Sheridan, John Sheridan. He does that. It's a great process. He does it right there in the sales portion of his meetings and stuff like that. He says, hey, look, if I can answer your questions before I get there, it's more efficient for both of us. So, no, man, this is it's been a great interview. I really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening to This is Concrete. We look forward to you joining us next time. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.